everybody. It's Holy Week edition for the midweek chat. It is April 16th, 2025. I'm just looking around. It seems that I got to pay attention more to what goes on around here. I probably could have helped. Sometime recently, the people at Louise Roach usually heads up the gang that gets our grounds looking pretty for Easter. So all last year's old growth they cut down. I see the pampas grass that I have near the spotlight pole here that shines on our Last Supper sculpture has been trimmed down to the ground. Usually I burn that, which is probably good that they didn't burn it, but anyway, thanks to everybody who did that. I'm not sure who those people were. I see some. I just tried to move the camera to show you the daffodils, but then it got all messed up. So you have to take my word for it. Maybe I'll remember at the end to show you. But got our daffodils blooming now for the last week or so. So it's well timed for spring and Holy Week and Easter. And of course, I'm sitting here at our beautiful sculpture of the Last Supper, which will come into play tomorrow night. Do some parish news. So tomorrow night we'll have our feast before the fast at 5 o'clock. We will, if you get there by 5, we'll collect $5 from people, and then we'll pay for the rest at the Pizza Ranch for the buffet. So it's a good deal. It's a celebration. Hope there's a good deal of mixing and maybe getting to know some new people. That's kind of the idea, that we gather to have a time of fullness and joy, both with food and fellowship, and then we enter into Christ's Passion with the Mass of the Lord's Supper. And the idea is that we have a Paschal fast. It's a more ancient tradition than just fasting on Good Friday, but from the Mass of the Lord's Supper and entering into His Passion. Is that Levi Flying Mail 1? God bless the people in there. It's one of our parishioners is a helicopter pilot that takes people to the hospital, so I think that's what that was. So we pray for the well-being of the person in there. So, and at the end of the Holy Thursday Mass, we I misspoke, right? So it's one Mass over 3 days. The end of the Holy Thursday liturgy, the Mass continues with the Good Friday, the Lord's Passion, and then concludes after the Easter Vigil. But at the end of the Holy Thursday liturgy, we take the Blessed Sacrament out with a solemn procession. People follow us out of church. We'll come out here, and we will walk around right in front of this sculpture, everybody. So you'll see this, maybe lit. It will be lit with our spotlight. And then we'll process with the Blessed Sacrament to the gathering space, where we'll have a reservation altar for people to sit and pray until 11 p.m. So that'll be Thursday night. Then while I'm talking about it, Good Friday at 1 p.m. and Easter Vigil at 8:30. There's this idea that we're not wanting to guilt anybody out, but really try to participate in those liturgies. It's unique. There's no liturgy like the Holy Thursday Mass of the Lord's Supper. And there's no liturgy like the Good Friday of the Lord's Passion. There's certainly no liturgy like the Easter Vigil. And they're all kind of one. And someone I just read an article said, if you just go Easter Sunday, you sort of miss the progress that the rest of the people have made who have entered into the Lord's Passion on Holy Thursday and Good Friday and Easter Vigil, and you sort of miss a lot of the richness of the story. So anyway, but it's a time commitment. Mass of the Lord's Supper usually takes a couple hours. Good Friday, Lord's Passion, what is that? About an hour and a half, maybe? I don't know. I don't know how long it lasts. And Easter Vigil, probably pretty long this year because we have a lot going on. We have a lot of initiates that'll enter the church and be confirmed. We have one adult baptism, so all those things take some time, but it's a joy. So that's what we're getting ready for now. I sat in on the, maybe you saw the YouTube video of our choir practicing last night. One of our choirs practicing last night, singing No Greater Love, beautiful Michael Jonka song, getting ready for the Holy Thursday liturgy and the washing of feet. Okay, so I went right from grounds to talking about Triduum. I wasn't planning on that, but I guess we got that in. Oh, just various parish news, kick out of the way, lest I forget. Last week I got more comments about what I mentioned about eating than about anything else from the chat. I was at St. John's last week in front of Lake Sagatagan, and I just mentioned that I noticed when I was trying to slow down there at St. John's when I was eating that I tend to take my next bite before I swallowed my first bite. And I thought, well, that's silly. Why do I do that? And I just got a lot of comments from people that say, yeah, I struggle with that too. I wish I didn't do that. And so, yeah, I think as I've reflected on it this week, I think I'm just sort of in a hurry for some reason. Because I really enjoy the taste of food. So it's not like I just want to get it done. It's not functional. It's something I enjoy. So why not extend it? I don't know, our bodies are weird, right? We want pleasure and we want it now. And if the first bite was good, let's get the second bite in as soon as we can. But anyway, I appreciated hearing that other people have that same sort of struggle. Anyway, that's not parish news. That's just follow up last week. Okay, so, well, the main thing is Triduum, right? You'll see pretty new pew cards come into church. Laminated, trifold, I think. It'll have a lot of information on it. It's meant to take place of those loose cards that we have with the creeds on them. These trifolds will have the creeds on them, but it'll also have some things about how we don't take a hard collection typically, but the receptacles, if you want to make a hard donation, a check, a cash, and you want to leave your money in church where those receptacles are. Kind word to parents with children who make noise, welcoming them, and our philosophy about that. And just a lot of nice little things like that it's been revised many times and reread. And so hopefully you'll enjoy those in the pews, just in time for Easter, right? Let's see, we got, what else? Speaking of St. John's, I haven't had confirmed this yet, but there's summers. I was hoping maybe to do a two-night retreat. I got about 4 people interested in going, and I think as it gets closer, I'll get more people. But since I was there, I thought I'd set it up, and the guy said, well, we're pretty full for the summer. So I think we can get July 21st, a Monday. He said he had 11 rooms, so then I wrote back and forth, and he goes, well, it's still a little up in the air, so I don't know if he's pulling away that offer, but I'm working on it, and I'm hoping July 21st will be the day overnight. So that'd be a Monday overnight into Tuesday for a little summer retreat. Again, let me know if you're interested in that. So we had a death in the parish this week. Dan Hofacker. Dan and Lori joined recently in the parish, and he's from Durand and had a nice job. I don't know if he worked for Bauerbilt but he did a lot of traveling. Competent guy, and then he took ill and after retirement. And his services were in Menominee, so I guess he had more connection there, but we enjoyed having his presence here. I was able to anoint him in his home about a month ago. So, one of my times, heart gift. Maybe we don't have too much parishes. Maybe it's all kind of focused in on Holy Week, most of our things. I'll mention the Good Friday collection. I can maybe talk about this. So the Good Friday collection, the bishops ask us to take the Good Friday collection, and then it goes to support the ministry in the Holy Land of the Catholic Church there. A lot of it to support the shrines, a lot of it to support Catholic education to Christians there. Most of the people in the Holy Land are either Jewish or Muslim, but there is a Christian presence, and it's dwindling as it gets a little more difficult to live there. And for example, the tourism industry has been it was crushed by COVID, and then it had a little reawakening, and then the war in Gaza. So they find more opportunity elsewhere. There's a lot of diehard people that really want to stay, and so we support them with the collection, and we're glad that they're there. So we are taking 14 people over in June, so that I'm excited to be able to do that. Talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So, but anyway, the collection this Friday, the Eau Claire Deanery, the pastors decided not to take that collection for the Holy Land Church, but to take it for our homeless shelter in town here. Sojourner House, because this message, because it's sort of in crisis this year. A lot of grants they were expecting to get did not come in, and so there's this big debt they're trying to pay off, and we want to be able to keep that shelter open throughout the year. And they're originally just going to close it during the summer, and so basically crisis time. So Father James, our dean, has been working real hard along with Christine. She's been very important to the whole process, and trying to work with the city and get funding. Community Foundation, City Council, all these groups have been working on it. And so anyway, because of the urgency and the need, it was suggested that we take the Good Friday collection and put it toward that. I think they're looking for another $80,000 or something. They've been able to get some contributions to bring down this $400,000 debt. And then there's long-term solutions, so it doesn't happen every year like this, to try to have a different agreement with the city and Catholic Charities. And so we hope it doesn't come to this every year. But anyway, part of me is, of course, we want an important thing to contribute to, but I was uncomfortable with just ignoring the plight of the Christians in the Holy Land, which we support. So anyway, I'll take money from our charity account and send that into the diocese. That'll send it on to the Latin Patriarchate in Jerusalem. So, because they're in a vulnerable time, it's not a good time to skip that, our support for that. And if you want to support for that, just know your Good Friday cash will go to the homeless shelter. But if you want to give the parish some money for the Holy Land, we'll put it there. I'll send it at the end of the month. Okay, so today is Spy Wednesday. What's Spy Wednesday? Well, it's a little windy here. It's from the southeast. Of all the days to come to the Last Supper sculpture for the chat, the wind is in the worst possible direction from the southeast. But so here's an icon. See that? You know what's going on there, right? All the soldiers and the swords, and someone's trying to kiss Jesus with his arms around him. Is it a sincere kiss? No. There's a little different drawing. Artistically, it's not as appealing to me, but it's a little more of a close-up. So the spy is Judas, right? So Spy Wednesday, before Holy Thursday, the Wednesday of Holy Week, is when we remember the betrayal of Judas, handing Jesus over to the authorities. And so, I was reading a little about Judas. I just, today's reading is really one of my least favorite readings because of what it says about Judas, what Jesus says about Judas at the end. He says, the Son of Man is to be handed over, but woe to him by whom he is betrayed. And then he says it would be better for that one if he had never been born. And it just sort of chills me to the bone. That seems so contra Jesus. So you never know what sneaks into the Gospels that maybe isn't of Jesus. But of course, you don't want to question Scripture like willy-nilly, because then you're just making Scripture in your own image, and that's no good. It's there to judge us and lead us, not for us to judge it. But that's harsh. Better that he was never born, And of course, Judas ended his life taking his own life, hanging himself. And if you take that story at its word, maybe that was the cause of his despair when he heard Jesus say that. So, because Peter, he didn't hand him over to the authorities, but Peter denied him. So Judas betrayed him, Peter denied him, both not great, sins against the Lord. But Peter was rehabilitated. Jesus forgave him. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? You know that I love you. You know that I love you. Yes, I love you. Feed my sheep, feed my lambs, tend my sheep, And off he went to spread the good news like no one. Between him and Paul, the word really got out there. But anyway, it's just sad to me. Better that he was never born. Sometimes it seems that we can take out we'll just find a villain and take out our hostilities on the villain, and then we don't have to worry about ourselves, And I remember I was in California one year, and I toured a mission. I think it was in Santa Barbara. They have all those Junipero Serra missions, from the, 1800s. I hate to talk out of too much ignorance. Probably 1800s, right? And he founded, San Jose, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo. There's all these. It's like a mule's journey day that he would travel, and then he'd build another mission there, and another mission there, and another mission there. Anyway, so I went to one of these museums, mission museums, and there was this picture of something in flames, and I'm like, oh, that's nice, a bonfire, And but it was the burning of the Judas goat. I guess that was a tradition, the burning of the Judas goat. And basically, probably during Holy Week, it was a big getting ready. Maybe today, maybe on Wednesday of Holy Week, they'd gather, they'd build this big fire, and then they'd have a big like rag doll, like a Judas and effigy, and they'd all, better he was never born. They'd all chant, I can imagine, and threw him in the fire to burn him, and everybody cheered, because we burned the evil one, And golly jeepers, doesn't that sound a little like mob violence that killed Jesus? Didn't Jesus die and rise to free us from such hate and scapegoating and violence? So that was discouraging to see that. So anyway, what about Judas? So we don't know that much about him. I was just doing a little reading before here. He's one of the 12. He's betrayed Jesus. That's kind of what's agreed. He's a subject of a lot of novels and movies. Someone discovered in the Egyptian desert maybe 20 years ago the Gospel of Judas that was not included in the Bible because it was a little goofy, but it's what they call a Gnostic gospel. And Gnostics believe basically that bodies are bad and spirits good, and the whole point of spirituality is to be released from our bodies and just be spirits. And so the earth, our bodies, sexuality, anything that's like physical is like evil, And so in the Gospel of Judas, they're like partners. Judas is sort of like a hero, and Jesus wants him to betray him. You got to betray me so I can get out of this body. I can't be crucified soon enough. And so that's one of the premises of that. Maybe you've seen The Chosen. Judas, of course, they just released, a lot of our people here are Chosen fans. I'm one of them. And so I saw the last installment of season 5 when I was on retreat. I scooted into St. Cloud, Minnesota, and watched it. There, Judas is tortured, but his motive isn't that he hates Jesus or that most of the gospel just shows like he's just greedy, like he wants money. And in The Chosen, he's trying to get as good a deal as he can, so he does want some money. But he haggles with Caiaphas. 50 pieces of silver. Caiaphas says 20. They finally decide on 30. But he basically, his logic was, well, I will betray him because I do believe he's the Messiah. If you take him and you crucify him and he's not the Messiah and he just dies and that's it, well, then we'll look for another one. And he wasn't the Messiah. But if he really is the Messiah, then he will survive that crucifixion, and he will be triumphant in his survival, and that will foment this revolution, and we'll take over, we'll kick the Romans out, and we'll have a good kingdom that we rule ourselves and kick the foreign occupiers out. So anyway, that's the way that The Chosen sort of, and it ended in the garden that season, right, with a kiss, right? So, what else did I write about? Did I just the Judas goat that had never been born? James Martin wrote a little bit about Judas in an article 20 years ago when that apocryphal gospel came out, and he said he concluded he wanted a God of his own making rather than the God of Jesus Christ. Yeah, he wanted that sort of violent overthrow and political power. And, so he missed redemption. He wasn't open to being led. He wanted to lead Jesus in his direction. And then what I meant, he believed his sin was too great to be forgiven. So that's maybe the real tragedy of his life. A lot of people point out, I know it's important to Christine, that at the foot washing, which we'll celebrate in 24 hours, that he was there, So Jesus, knowing he would be betrayed by him, loved him and washed his feet. And that must have been a moment, huh? So anyway, a little on Judas. Mother Teresa quotes? I don't know. A few quotes on the resurrection, Easter, that I came across that I liked. I like Oprah's. I for sure believe in miracles. For me, a miracle is seeing the world with light in your eyes. It's knowing there's always hope and possibility where none seems to exist. So this doesn't mention Jesus particularly, but it's this tomb. We don't see hope and possibility. Jesus in the tomb, and then there's resurrection. So, Mother Teresa, she said, "Never let anything so fill you with sorrow as to make you forget the joy of Christ risen." That's something, to be filled with sorrow. It sounds like a kind of a platitude that might bother me if I was really in sorrow, and yet it's, I guess it's true. It's that little glimmer of hope when you really, really are hurting. I put in here my own thought. So this idea of entering into Christ's passion, he's taken away, he's imprisoned, he's crucified, laid in the tomb, and rises. We call that the Paschal mystery, right? We enter into our passion when we seek to follow God's will. We don't know where that'll lead us. We enter into the passion, that story. We're all dying and rising. So we die to our own will. We rise to wherever the Lord leads us. We enter into our passion when we start anything new. Change is hard, saying goodbye to an old, welcoming a new. Sometimes we make that choice. Sometimes it just happens to us. There's a death, or we lose a job, or we get sick. We enter in our passion when we grieve, or when we seek forgiveness from another. It's going into death and waiting for something new, an ending and a new beginning. The spiritual directors, a year ago I was in, if you remember, in Massachusetts, on that 8-day retreat to celebrate my 60th birthday. I thought I'd do something like that. And my director, Father Joe, he said, I said, why do they call it the Paschal mystery? He goes, yeah, why do they call it the Paschal mystery? You know what I think? Because we don't know how it happens. It just does. That new life comes from death. That there's dying and rising. We don't know why it's that way, but that's just the way it is. And we don't know why. It's kind of a mystery. But that's the way it is. So, remember that. I want to talk about something I've alluded to it here, but it really bothers me when people, and I think in this I have a lot in common with Jesus. It really bothers me when people use religion to hurt people. And if Jesus ever gets mad, and he does in the Gospels, it's when people in the name of God hurt people. The little ones, they lead people astray, and they don't lift a finger to help them. They lay heavy burdens on people, and da-da-da-da. And, the cleansing of the temple, he hurts people. Or he says this has to be a place that brings people closer to God. He made it a marketplace. So there's a group of religious leaders, Christians, in the Holy Land. So, like I said, there are Christians in the Holy Land, and most of them are Palestinian. And so they have, they're there, and they're losing, they're suffering greatly. Some there aren't that many in Gaza, but the Gaza church, there's a Greek Orthodox church and a Roman Catholic church, and they're hanging on. But this statement came out a few weeks ago from these Christians. It's called the Jerusalem Voice for Justice. And they want to just call attention to the world. It's like, there's this Gaza war going on, and in the meantime, that's awful. All these people are being killed. And in the meantime, in the northern and West Bank, occupied territories, all these Palestinians, Muslims and Christians, are being thrown out of their homes and losing the land. And it seems like the leadership, which is now more or less supported by our leadership, which has influence in our voice, it's moving toward maybe annexation, where there's just no Palestinian homeland whatsoever. It's just Israel just kind of claim all the land. Right now it's sort of occupied territories, and they're hoping, not everybody's, but international law and the church, and that Palestinian people deserve a home and they deserve some autonomy. And so working toward a solution where they can have that. And this is, we just kind of squashed that. So, and why I brought up that first thing, let's see if I have a quote, just about using religion. I don't know, there's this sense among a lot of Christians that have influence that, we have to support the current policies of Israel that are moving toward annexation and demolishing Palestinian villages, and because Israel is God's chosen people from the Bible, and to take that and then to sort of put that on 2025, today's political reality, is just disheartening, because people are being killed and displaced, and why would God want that? Isn't God a God for peace? And so the signatories of this declaration also address those who support the war against Palestinians because they believe it is part of God's plan. So I'll just read from this letter. We want to state clearly that you've been misguided. This is like all Palestinians and Israelis are all created in the image and likeness of God. They're all equal in dignity and rights. Furthermore, our God is a God of love who abhors violence and loves all God's children. The Palestinians are your neighbor. The inviolable commandment in the Word of God we share is this: love your neighbor as yourself. And then the guy who was quoting that was actually a priest, Jesuit priest. He was my teacher when I was on sabbatical. His name's Father John Neuhaus, and he's one of the signatories of this. And they asked him, how do you make sense of those who distort Scripture in this way in order to support the elimination of Palestinians? He said, it's difficult to understand those who do this. They do not realize that their biblical discourse is justifying the death of countless men, women, and children, the devastation of their homes and ravaging of their land. Has dehumanization and demonization reached such a level that Palestinians no longer are considered to be among God's children? So there's a lot of rhetoric, just kind of, so it's using, it seems like it's all about getting political ends, and they're using religion to try to get their political ends. And that's kind of upsetting to people who see God as different than that. God doesn't like injustice, unfairness, and killing and displacement. And it's a conundrum over there for sure. And there's a lot of violence going both ways. But just lately, there's been this real push, like, we're just going to take it all. And there's really, you hear rhetoric among like our ambassador and things like that there's no such thing as a Palestinian, and they don't call it the West Bank or occupied territories anymore. They go back to the biblical names. It sounds holy, Samaria and Judea, but it's, the political reality is it's the occupied territories, So anyway, it's just real important to me, and I try to do my part to help people be aware of that, not be kind of bamboozled into thinking that the Palestinian people shouldn't have any rights and they're expendable, And they're Christian, so a lot of people that support these things are Christian people, and it just kind of goes over their heads that maybe they're hurting other Christians, but maybe a different variety, but still. Those who profess the Lord as Jesus is the Christ. So, anyway, I wasn't as eloquent on that as I hope to be. If you ever want to follow up with me and talk, we can. Okay. I'll just maybe close with Martin Luther King's thing that they quote in this document. So the Good Samaritan, the people that passed by the person on the side of the road, their question was, what'll happen to me if I stop? And they were afraid, be made unclean or whatever. But the Good Samaritan that helped said, what will happen to him if I don't stop? Right? So God bless you, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic Holy Week. I hope you're able to make the liturgies. God be praised for all that he's done for us. And let's not be betrayers. Let's not be deniers. Let's not be crucifiers. Let's be the people that the Lord formed us to be, bread broken and given for others. God bless you.